Tape Deck Media.
Hi folks, Aaron here with yet another quick note before we get into it. So, just a heads up that we actually ended up recording this episode in what seemed like pretty much 47 different parts, mostly because I kept finding more information about the film. Now, we normally wouldn't mention when we do that, but it's a bit more noticeable this time around, especially about a third of the way through the episode when all of a sudden Erica joins us after Joe just kind of seemingly vanishes under mysterious circumstances, possibly involving the Springfield mystery spot. Oh yeah, and I also randomly began pronouncing the director's name correctly around that same time too, but that's probably not as noteworthy as the whole person swap thing. But yeah, so anyway, that's all I got. So let's get going and hope you enjoy the episode.
See you at the party, Richter!
Welcome back to another episode of See You at the Party, Richter. I am one of your hosts, Joseph Beck Castro. Joining me, as always, is Aaron Frescus.
Howdy.
And Christopher Chapman.
Howdy doody.
Yes, hello to you too. Today we're going to be covering Arnold's 1976 weightlifting drama vehicle, Stay Hungry. Before we get into the movie summary and everything, we're going to do what we usually do and go over some production and trivia and other tidbits that Aaron has for us. Mm-hmm. So, without further ado, take it away, Aaron.
Gotta love Aaron's tidbits.
Big old titties. That's short for tidbits.
Yep.
Yeah. They're very, Anyway, okay.
Anyway.
Okay. So, I want to start already, huh? Already. Let me make this bigger. Rub it a little bit.
Fucking stupid. So fucking stupid.
Sorry.
Okay. Please keep that in.
I was talking about the screen on.
I know. I just want to get
screen.
Yeah, I just want to give our audience a peek behind the kimono.
But that's weird. That's how I do the episodes. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So I want to kick things off with a quick rundown of basic facts about the film, mostly because I think it's probably one of the rare Schwarzenegger movies that not a lot of people have heard of, much less seen.
Yeah.
Like you guys said you didn't watch it, right?
No, haven't watched it yet, and this is like maybe one of two movies on the list that I just had never heard of. It was like this and The Villain that I just had never ever heard of.
Yeah, me too. And some of his later stuff, you know.
Stop! Don't do that. Hey, what did I just say?
I can't tell if you're talking to the dog or the mic.
The microphone.
Or your wiener.
Oh, man. Okay, sorry. So, yeah, you guys didn't watch it. Cool, right? Correct?
Yeah.
All right, it's cool. So, anyway, Stay Hungry, which I described to you guys in the pre-watch intro as a 1978 comedy drama, is actually a 1976 film directed by Bob Rafelson.
Got it.
Yes. So this is now the second episode in a row that I've had to make corrections at the top of the episode, which is just awesome. Like annoying as hell because it's usually some dumb little error that I always end up feeling like a doofus for, like not catching later. Like seriously, I have no idea how I mix those years up. I even made sure to double check before we recorded it that I had the correct year, but then still somehow wrote down the wrong year. Like, because when I heard it, I was like, what the fuck? Anyway, just a dumb, careless mistake, but it's also super frustrating because at the same time, our next episode is the movie summary, which sucks because, of course, we're doing an episode that I don't write just as I'm on the verge of scoring my first hat trick.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you'll fuck something up next episode. Don't worry about it.
Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, you're solid with that.
Yeah, very reliable.
I mean, I just screwed the recording, so
Yeah.
And I guess technically it's technically happened for two movies in a row, so that's streak's still alive, you know?
Yeah.
And I suppose there's also the possibility that I screw up something during this episode, like you guys said. Like, yeah. Although it's not likely because I've been staying on it so far because of how stupid I was. Like, I just like, once I saw that, like right away, I was like, oh, you got to be fucking kidding me. Because I grabbed the information that I had on the Kindergarten Cop episode to pull over to this, like the new document. I was like, it's not set in 1978.
Well, just call it journalistic integrity. Realize you made a mistake and you are putting it out there and you want to correct it. So
exactly.
All right.
Because,
you
know,
it happens. I'm too hard on myself.
Yeah. Everyone makes mistakes. That's why pencils have erasers on them.
Yeah, so you can stick them up your butt. Why? Okay. It should have been, so it makes it easier to stick up. You don't want the other end to go. Anyway, okay.
I don't know the shape of that.
Yeah, I was about to say, technically the shape means the other side is more conducive to sticking up there, but...
Yeah, but you can poke your colon and then you got a hole.
This is what's going to make this episode take one of the side tracks. Okay, so anyway, let's get back to the quick facts. And by the way, I'm just going to burn through them real quick to like get them out of the way.
Cool.
Okay, so like I was saying, Stay Hungry is a 1977 film directed by Bob Rafelman and stars Jeff Bridges, Arnold Braunschweiger, and Sally from the Blink-182 song "I Miss You." Wait, no, that's not correct. Son of a bitch! I got the year wrong again. And this is what takes so long with this episode. You know how long that joke took to write? Jesus. A joke. Anyway. Okay, one more time. Sorry. So Stay Hungry, 1976 comedy drama directed by Bob Rafelson. And I'd say it's kind of a bit of a stretch calling it a comedy. You guys haven't watched it yet. But that's me saying that, who also just wrote like that horrible ass Blink-182 joke. So like, what the fuck do I know?
I didn't even get the joke.
It's one of the lines.
Yeah.
Which one?
It's what is it? It's A Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah. One of the lines refers to Jack and Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas in that song.
Yeah.
You can be like Jack and Sally if you
want. Yeah.
Where
See?
you can always find me. Yeah. And we'll have Halloween on Christmas.
Exactly.
I mean,
we'll wish this night we'll never... Okay, I'll stop.
It could have been worse because I originally called her Sally Fieldsy Raphael, but deleted that. What? Because I deleted that because I asked Erica, I was like, do you know who Sally Jesse Raphael is? She's like, no. I'm like, okay, well, that's... If she doesn't know, like...
I mean, granted the people listening to this podcast probably know.
Say,
yeah, probably.
The kids that don't listen to this podcast would never get that reference.
One time I did work with a Sally, a Jesse, and a Raphael. It's pretty great.
That's fun.
Would you only hang out with them when it's the three of them?
I wish.
You're always trying to get that going and then not show up. So they're all sitting there.
Like, oh, it's only Sally and Jesse. Like,
or no, show up later where they're all three there. You're like, Sally, Jesse, Raphael.
They're like, who the fuck is that?
Okay. So, Stay Hungry was written by Charles Gaines, which he'd adapted from his 1972 novel of the same name.
Okay, hold on. Sorry to interrupt. His name is Charles Gaines.
Gaines, yes.
And he wrote a book about weightlifting?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Director Bob Rafelson is also credited as a writer on the film. Rafelson also was a producer on the movie, along with his partner Harold Schneider, and then United Artists took care of the distribution. So Stay Hungry stars Jeff Bridges, Sally Field, R.G. Armstrong, who I recognized, because I watched it once, but I was like, I didn't look up. Like anyway. And then Robert Englund. Is that how you say that's how you say his last name?
I think so. It's just Englund.
Okay. Joe, you know how that is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Sorry, it's always kind of hit and miss with you. Like sometimes you're like, oh hell yeah.
I mean
he's famous enough, right?
Yeah, it's fucking Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
I just not only was it written by Charles Gaines, it also stars Arnie Armstrong.
Archie Armstrong, yeah.
Archie Armstrong. And was it set in England, but perchance? Is this like a shitty sitcom situation?
No. But are there any like sorry, I was thinking about your name thing. Like actors were like, well, that's obviously I'm trying to think of like
Denzel Washington, if he like plays like White House Down or whatever, like Washington D.C. It's right there.
No, I'm talking about like your I'm talking about like how you the names of the actors and stuff.
Oh,
do you have any favorite character actors? Is what I think I'm asking. Where you're like, oh yeah, I really like. I can't think of my character actor right now.
Oh,
Gary
okay.
Oldman.
But like,
Gary Oldman's too
sorry,
famous. It's like
like I'm trying to think
God,
of like
who's a good- I don't know, like a Bruce Greenwood or some shit like that.
See, I don't even know who that is.
Yeah.
I'm sure I recognize him when I see him.
He's the guy who plays the president in a lot of stuff.
Plays the president?
Yeah.
Oh, I know what you're talking. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Character actors. I'm trying to think of like a Richard Kind. Does that name
Sure.
like?
Yeah, that's a good one. He's in a
I mean,
buttload of stuff, but
I'd use it in Joe Namath because it'd be Dick Kind, which I probably have done now that I say it out loud. I'll have to go through my notes, but
Well, I guess Stephen Root would probably be. I don't know. I'm just like I was curious if you're like, oh man, everything that guy's in. Like Richard Kind, I really like because I was watching Only Murders in the Building. Richard Kind is again. He's mad about. I don't know what you would.
sure. He's the voice of.
He's the voice of the Inside Out.
He's the voice of the imaginary character.
The imaginary friend.
Yeah. He was on Spin City, right?
Yes.
oh
He
yeah,
was in, yeah.
that should be
Yeah,
our
that
next
guy.
podcast.
Spin City.
Spin
character actors?
podcast. Oh yeah, I know.
Spin
that guy,
City
yeah.
starring
Yeah.
Michael J. Pod? I don't know.
I'm sorry. I'm looking through the list of the Google's like thing of character actors. I'm like J.K. Simmons is.
Gary Cole.
Yeah. That's a good one.
The boss from Office Space.
Lombard.
Yeah, I think it's Lombard.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I thought that was going somewhere, but Lumber.
Lombard.
Yeah, there you go.
Lombard is the street here. The windiness.
Oh yeah, the famous one, right?
Yeah, it's a famous street. As famous as 2nd Avenue, baby, represent. Just kidding. No one gives a shit about that.
Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. Sorry, I was just wondering what level of fame to where you're like, oh, okay, but I guess it's different for I don't know. Anyway,
I mean, like Stephen Root, like in Gary Cole, like I know by name and everything, but you guys are always like, oh, fucking Steve Stevenson, and it's like, oh, he's a big character actor in the 80s and early 90s and like West German art films. I'm like, who the fuck is that? West Germany's not even a country anymore.
Basically, I'm wondering, is there like maybe there's like a type of movie that I don't even know how to approach that because they're in random fucking shit.
Yeah,
so,
it's totally random. That's what being a character actor is. You're in a bunch of
Okay. Anyway, so only because I was mentioning like, is it just because I just read Robert Englund's name again and I was like, is it just because he's like probably besides although you didn't know who I think we mentioned the one that does Chucky's voice.
Oh, Brad. Jesus.
Brad Dourif.
Yeah.
Brad you said you did know who that was, right?
No, is he related to Stephen Dorff?
Yes.
Did he invent the Waldorf salad with his friend Wally?
Yes,
Oh.
that was actually
okay. Yeah,
all
I
of
do know
this.
Wow. He's a busy guy.
You act like you don't know. But like for like horror villains, but I guess probably Robert Englund is probably the most famous one of like the horror things. Like
Yeah, he's like
the slashers.
He's probably the only actor I would recognize from any of that stuff.
I mean, yeah, I know the names of some of the people behind like
I know like
Masks,
Kane
but
Hodder and some of the other people, but like, yeah, he's the only one who ever got famous as Robert Englund, I think.
sorry, I was trying to think of the guy from Saw. I don't know his name. Or like Tony Todd is probably the only, which is Candyman.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, sorry. Okay, so I'm going to read the short little plot summary that was listed on the Wikipedia because I've watched the movie, but still couldn't really tell you what it's about. I mean, once I read this, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that is what it's about. Anyway, if that's okay, it's just a very basic, okay. Like it's like the little tiny plot. So the story centers on a young scion from Birmingham, Alabama.
You already lost me. What the fuck does scion mean?
That's what I was like.
What the fuck?
Car.
No, it's a car. It's a car. So yes, it's a young scion, but it's a new car.
It's in 1976.
Which I almost combined the description from Arnold Schwarzenegger and then this because I was like, what the fuck is I know what a young scion is after reading like Schwarzenegger's, but basically Schwarzenegger starts it off by saying he said the story focuses on the young scion who's just Jeff Bridges, but he inherited a bunch of money.
Oh, okay, got it.
From his parents or whatever.
Got it. Okay.
So that's what a scion is? I don't know.
Sure.
I should put go into Wikipedia and right next to scion put reference needed. Anyway, so young rich guy who gets involved in a shady real estate deal. In order to close the deal, he needs to buy a gym. Sorry, it says a gym building, but a gym to complete a multi-parcel lot. He becomes romantically interested in the gym's receptionist and is drawn to the carefree lifestyle of the Austrian bodybuilder Joe Santo, who is training for a Mr. Universe competition and is oddly enough played by Sally Field. Which was like a casting switcheroo there. That last part was me, but obviously.
Man, in the 70s, they would make a movie about fucking anything, wouldn't they?
That's exactly what I was like. This reminded me, and there's something else later, but like this reminded me of what we were talking about in like, because I listened to the Kindergarten Cop one when Dave was talking about Every Which Way But Loose.
Yeah.
And just like the fucking, he hangs out with the monkey. He goes around fighting
Not really
people.
related, but
Yeah.
I mean, like the 70s, I think, what was it? Kramer versus Kramer was like the #1 movie of that year or something. It's like about
Isn't
a family
that
getting
an
divorced.
actual serious movie?
Yeah, no, it's about like a family going through divorce and everything. I'm just saying it was fucking weird. Like the 70s were a weird time for movies anyways, because that was like the #1 movie of the year.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was huge.
Was that when Tootsie came out?
No, that was the 80s.
Oh, okay. That makes sense, you know? They're not going to let Dustin Hoffman get away. Dustin Hoffman get away with dressing like a dame, because they'd call it a dame. Dressing like a dame in the 70s?
I think they'd call it a skirt. Yeah.
I don't think they'd call it either one of those. Skirt's probably a little closer. Okay. But yeah, now that we have the quick facts out of the way, let's start off by finding out how Schwarzenegger became involved in the film.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, we need to go back to the early 70s when Arnold met two fellas who would have a pretty big impact on his career. And they were George Butler and Stay Hungry writer Charles Gaines. And by the way, like 95% of the info I found for this episode comes from 3 different books, which are obviously Arnold's 2012 autobiography, Total Recall, Sally Field's 2018 autobiography titled In Pieces. And then the last one was a 1998 book by Peter Biskind titled Easy Rider, Raging Bulls, double colon. Is that what those are called?
What?
Like the two colon things. Is that it's not a semicolon, obviously. Is it just a
what? The two dots is just a colon.
Yeah.
The 2 dots?
A semicolon is a dot and
okay. See, I'm
dot and
overthinking
a comma. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
2 dots is just a colon.
Anyway, Easy Rider, Raging Bulls, colon, how the sex, drugs, and rock and roll generation saved Hollywood.
Aaron's having a lot of trouble because there's a pencil stuck in his colon.
Yes.
He put the eraser sign first. It's very uncomfortable.
Yes, exactly. It helps me stay awake because of the sleep deprivation. Like it's either like deal with the sleep deprivation or, you know.
Yeah. Like, will it erase my poop? Like, I don't know. One way to find out.
Man. And that book is fucking insane. I didn't even finish it yet, and I don't think I am, but I went in there to get stuff. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. But so according to Arnold in his book, he met George Butler and Charles Gaines in the fall of 1972 when Butler and Gaines were covering the Mr. Universe contest for Life magazine. Butler was a photographer and Gaines was a writer. By the way, these two gentlemen were also eventually responsible for Pumping Iron, which for anyone not familiar with it is basically a behind-the-scenes look at the world of competitive bodybuilding. Butler and Gaines co-authored the 1974 best-selling book, and then they co-produced the 1977 quote-unquote documentary, but more of like a docudrama, which George Butler also co-directed. By the way, just for people listening, we did record an episode like 3 years ago covering that 1970 Pumping Iron, the 1977 documentary, but we just haven't released the majority of it. And I'd make up a reason why, but honestly, it's mostly because I completely forgot about it until I started writing this. So I'm only mentioning the fact that we already covered it as a reason for why we're going to kind of slide past it today. And because we'll eventually get through it whenever we finally like release that episode.
Yeah. And that was before we had Chris on the show. So we got to like do some crazy editing.
That's
get him in there.
Yep.
Yeah. So he needs like make comments every now and then. He goes and listens to it and then like makes comments and, you know,
just a lot of me fake laughing.
Yeah, exactly. He's the Joe for that episode. So anyhow, George Butler, Charles Gaines, who I was going to use a nickname for, like I did with the Coralco boys, but then the only thing I could think of was like combining their names together, and I didn't think calling them Butt Chuck for the rest of the episode was super appropriate. So like, we're just going to call
Gaines,
them. Yeah, but exactly. Because I was like, they don't have a production company or anything. I don't know. So, and the first thing that popped in my mind was Butt Chuck, Butler and Charles. I don't know. But yeah, no, got to be. We're going to be respectful. Anyway, so Butler and Gaines met Arnold in the fall of 1972, with Arnold mentioning in his book that Chuck Gaines was Butler and Gaines met Arnold in the fall of 1972, with Arnold mentioning in his book that Charles Gaines, because that's what's throwing me off, just calling him Chuck, was very knowledgeable when it came to bodybuilding and had recently had a novel published titled Stay Hungry, which Schwarzenegger said was a bestseller, and I probably should have looked up the book sales number, but we're just going to take his word for it. Like,
yeah. A bestseller among all my bodybuilding friends.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, yeah. So Arnold would eventually introduce Butler and Gaines to Joe Weider, who, along with his brother Ben, were basically the fathers of bodybuilding. Yeah, they co-founded the International Federation of Bodybuilders, which, according to Wikipedia, is the governing body for the sport of... Sorry. Yes, that's what it says. The governing body for the sport of bodybuilding that oversees most of the major events and competitions. And that just got to be like one fucking fine-ass governing body. Like, that thing has got to be fucking cut. Like, man, it's like the Arnold Schwarzenegger of governing bodies right there.
I think Arnold Schwarzenegger is the Arnold Schwarzenegger of governing bodies.
Okay, yeah. That's the Franco Columbu of governing bodies right there.
There you go.
Anyway, in addition to that, Joe Weider was also the creator of the Mr. and Mrs. Olympia contests, as well as publishing a bunch of the major fitness magazines, including Muscle and Fitness, Men's Fitness, and Shape, which is like the number one women's fitness magazine. That was the only one that I sort of heard of, but I was like, I know I've heard of that.
No, I mean Men's Fitness. I definitely.
No, I've heard of it, like Muscle and Fitness and Men's Fitness, but I was like, I know I've heard of Shape, and once I clicked on it, I was like, oh yeah, Shape. There was a couple more that they mentioned, but they're not around anymore. So it's like, And then most importantly, well, at least I guess for us, is that Weider and his brother are the ones responsible for bringing Arnold first to America, specifically for a Mr. Universe competition, which he did not end up winning. So he was actually originally planning on going back home to Europe after the competition was over. But instead, Arnold says that Weider, quote, this is from the book, he, quote, offered to pay my way to California and get me an apartment, a car, and living expenses so that I could concentrate on training for an entire year. By the time the same competitions came around again the next fall, I'd have another shot. Meanwhile, his magazines would report on my training and would supply translators so I could write about my programs and express my ideas, unquote. Which, first off, it definitely sounds like Joe Weider recognized that Schwarzenegger's potential because, damn, he hooked him up. Like,
that is a lot.
Yeah. Basically paying for him for a year. And I have a feeling that Arnold would have, I think he still would have made it to America eventually, because that was, from what he says in the book, that was one of his major goals at the time. And he's just driven as hell when he's, sets out to do something.
Yeah.
But it would have made it way more challenging of an adjustment without, that happening.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to shell out for an entire year.
Exactly. Because I'm not sure how, moving to a new country is already tough enough, but there was also the language barrier.
Yeah. Definitely.
Especially at that time.
Yeah.
And in his case. And I know that we're pretty, we're usually a pretty, patient, tolerant bunch over here in the U.S., especially when it comes to non-English speaking immigrants. But still, yeah, that language barrier would have been, try to find a job, because not having to worry about that, along with removing the stress of immediately needing to find a job where that's not an issue, the language, and then basically just being able to train all day.
Yeah.
Which he was able to do with, Weider helped him do, is just a huge fucking advantage when you get to America. Not only for, going there as a non-English speaking immigrant, but even if he would have done it on his own and came there, he still wouldn't have been able to work out as much as he was able to with this situation, because he would have to work. And I guess he was basically, this is, basically turns into his job then.
Yeah.
Right? Sort of?
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
If he's getting paid to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's like his, he's like in bodybuilding college, basically. That's basically what that is. Like they're paying for
like
everything.
A scholarship.
So yeah. Anyway, sorry. That's a little sidetrack. Just explaining who Joe Weider was. I realized we hadn't talked about him yet. But getting back to where we were. So Arnold introduces George Butler and Charles Gaines to Joe Weider. And this ends up being an important introduction, and is actually when I realized that I'll probably end up bugging you guys eventually about redoing the production part of the Pumping Iron episode, because I didn't look at my notes, but I'm almost positive that I didn't mention that, along with, I'm sure, much more stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the episodes were different then.
Yes. So we'll most likely discuss it in more detail, maybe later, probably. But basically, at the time, the general public wasn't very familiar with both the sport as well as bodybuilding just in general. Mm-hmm. Which I think we did mention that. But yeah, so that introduction with Weider meeting with Charles Gaines and George Butler, that introduction in 1972 ended up being the beginning of bodybuilding becoming more mainstream, which Arnold definitely benefited from in at least a few ways. Mm-hmm. The first obvious one being the exposure from both versions of Pumping Iron, which we'll get into on maybe a different episode eventually. I don't know. But for this episode, we're going to focus on how he benefited from his relationship with Charles Gaines, who, along with George Butler, Arnold became friendly with because Gaines and Butler were doing research for the Pumping Iron book, which I believe they kind of did by they were at Gold's Gym. They were just gathering material by basically he kind of makes a seem in the book like they were around all the time because they were researching for their book. So I'm sure they were asking questions, just becoming friendly with the bodybuilders, seeing their, watching their workout routine and everything like that. But that might not be 100% correct. But yeah. So he got to know him through that, and he's a very personable fella. So I don't know. Yeah. It seems like he's one of those people that makes friends very easily.
Yeah.
It's kind of people that I hate. Don't get me wrong, I love them. But a little too much to where they're like, you're coming all strong there, bud. I'm like, whoa, I thought you're supposed to be nice. Yeah. What happened to us? I'm sorry.
This is your fault.
Yeah, exactly. Those people that I like. Anyway. Okay, so Arnold mentions that Charles Gaines is actually the one who introduced him to director Bob Rafelson. Gaines had sold the rights to Stay Hungry to Bob Rafelson, and then Gaines and Butler started pushing for Rafelson to cast Schwarzenegger for the role of bodybuilder Joe Santo in the film. So at this time, Bob Rafelson was already a well-known director and producer, having started a production company with his fellow producer Bert Schneider in 1965, that they named Raybert Productions, which was later renamed BBS Productions. Have you guys ever heard of Bob Rafelson, by the way?
No.
Okay.
Never.
Nope. Okay.
And I know he made other movies, just from doing just randomly seeing stuff while I was looking stuff up, but I don't think I've seen a single one of his movies. Okay, just curious. Interesting fact / I guess quick side note, but one of the first things they did after forming the company was develop a television show about a pop rock band that Bob Rafelson had already tried selling to 2 different studios in 1962, but was turned down. Was it the Monkees? Or are you about to tell us? I'm about to tell you. Okay. But a couple of movies had come out since then, starring some band from England called the B-Atlas. Stupid. Anyway, Rafelson and Schneider had no problem selling the show after that happened. And Chris guessed what show it was. It was the Monkees, obviously. Got it. Yeah. So, wait. Sorry. So they were trying to sell that show before the Beatles got popular? Yes. Bob Rafelson, the director eventually the director of Stay Hungry, pitched that idea, or wanted to develop the idea with 2 different production companies in 1962. And I think the Beatles were around then, right, Joe? Yeah. But they weren't like the Beatles, like Beatlemania and all that hadn't happened yet. Which I did a super quick look at just to double check the years. Oh. Is Rafelson American? Do you know? Yes. Oh, okay. I think he's from New England. Which is easier to say than New York. I can't remember if it's Connecticut, New York. I don't know. Anyway. So the director of Stay Hungry also created the at first fictional band and then eventual real band, the Monkees. And I've only heard a little bit of their music, but I actually liked it so much that I started referring to the Beatles as the British Monkees. Because I'm assuming it's usually the other way around, but I don't really know. Probably. Have you guys heard any of their music? The Monkees? I'm sure I've heard a song or two.
Sleepy Jean.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I
Hey,
don't even know
we're
what
the
song that is.
monkeys.
Yeah, I know that song.
Oh, you know Sleepy Jean, like
I don't know. Is
wake
it Cheer
up,
Up?
sleep.
Oh, Wake Up.
Or cheer up, Sleepy Jean. What
Oh.
can it mean to a daydream believer? And
Oh, yeah. Is it that Daydream
Homecoming
Believer
Queen.
song is?
Yeah, it's the Daydream Believer song.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know that song. Then there's one more that I saw that I don't remember right now, but that was like a big hit. But
Yeah.
I know one of the only songs I know is they come out with later when they started like trying to be like experimental, and I'm assuming when they started taking drugs or something like that. And it's good. It just doesn't sound like the Monkees, which I don't know what the Monkees sound like. So, but anyway, so you guys have just heard like the hits then.
Essentially, yeah, like the theme song to the TV show and not much
Yeah.
else.
Okay, I was just curious if they're
It's a catchy song.
yeah. I should have probably looked up who wrote it. I don't know. But they, so he created the Monkees, and the success of both the Monkees TV show and the records meant that Rafelson and Schneider gained not just fame, but enough money to start producing their own films. The first of which, titled Head, also starred the Monkees and was Bob Rafelson's directorial debut. In film, he'd already directed an episode or two of the Monkees, some episodes of the Monkees. I didn't look up at many. Yeah.
Did it? Wait. Was it a Monkees movie? Like, was it starring the Monkees as the Monkees, or just starring those four dudes as other people?
I see. I was like, they're not going to ask any questions about this. I don't need to look it up. No, from what I read, because I was reading an interview about it, like with him, I know this one was supposed to be like trippy. Okay, let's see. The Monkees frolic their way through a series of musical set pieces and vignettes containing surreal humor and anti-establishment social commentary.
Got it.
So it sounds just like a bite off of Hard Day's Night.
Yeah.
See, I've never seen those movies either. How are those movies any good?
Hard Day's Night one's enjoyable. Help.
What are they about?
Fucking.
Being a drugged out hippie.
No, this is before they were drugged out hippies. That one is Yellow Submarine, and
okay.
if you're a drugged out hippie, that movie's pretty awesome. If you're not, then it sucks.
Is it just a bunch of visuals? That one? Sorry.
Yeah,
That
it's
was
just
mostly
like an
cartoon,
animated,
right?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like an animated movie. But Hard Day's Night, I don't know. They're like on a train, and then they're playing music, and Paul's grandpa's there. And then people are chasing them, and they're gonna go play a show. I don't think there's really a plot now that I think about it.
This sounds like a dream. This is just a dream Joe had.
Wait, is it his real grandpa? That was my question at all that.
He doesn't even mean George Harrison, just a guy named George he knows.
Okay, so there's no. It's just because the Monkees were, the Beatles were popular, and they're like,
Yeah.
Put
Why they on that?
Put them in a movie. No, but that one's good. I actually enjoy that movie.
In what way?
It's fun and funny,
Okay,
and then it's got good music. Yeah, it like the comedy holds up, and British people usually aren't funny. So,
Famously.
wait, have we checked our stats? How are we looking in the UK?
I haven't looked at it recently, but
Okay, well,
Who gives a shit about those British monkeys?
yeah.
Sorry, when you said it earlier, it sounded like a slur, so I thought I'd use it as a slur.
Well, we might gain some fans from Ireland for that. But,
a new anti-British slur that we just made up.
Exactly.
Help has a plot. Ringo has like a ring that some evil people want, and they go skiing and stuff.
Huh.
That one's not that good. That one's in color though.
As evidenced by the fact that they just made the plot like literally the first thing that came to their mind.
Yeah.
Well, Ringo has a ring. Yeah, he's got a special ring.
Okay, so are they actually playing the music, or is it just like background? Like all of a sudden a song starts playing.
Both. So I think when they're doing "Can't Buy Me Love," they're like running around in the field or some shit. I don't know, but I should have known better. Like they play while on the train, and then in Help they play like different stuff. So I guess it just really depends.
Were those the only 3 movies?
No, there's Magical Mystery Tour, which I still have never seen, and then Let It Be, but that's more of a documentary.
Okay, well, that's not fun. Isn't that around the time they break up?
Yeah.
Well,
Is that the one that just came out a few years ago? That
Yeah.
Peter Jackson took
yeah,
all the
Peter-
footage?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay, got it. I tried watching that. I I got through the first half and then couldn't get through the second half. I was like, this is boring as shit. I don't care about the Beatles.
Wasn't there a different documentary on... That was Disney Plus, right?
That was Disney Plus. Yeah.
Wasn't there a different one, like an older one? Or is that the only one?
The Let It Be? No.
That was supposed to be really good? Or is that the one that was supposed to be really good?
That's the one that's supposed to be good, is the Peter Jackson one. Because, I mean, they had like a shitload of footage and then they cut it down into a movie, Let It Be, like it came out in like 1970 or whatever. But then it was kind of like you couldn't find it anywhere. Like, you couldn't watch it or anything. And then Peter Jackson got a hold of it and remastered it and edited it down to 5 hours or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the other problem. It was super fucking long.
Yeah. So Chris is just an uncultured swine then?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
What am I going to say?
Absolutely.
Okay. I haven't even tried to watch
Better
it.
than being a British monkey. Sorry.
Okay. Anyway. So yeah, that was Bob Raffleson's directorial debut for a movie. Anyway, after that, they produced some pretty big hits, including the 1969 roads, I guess, / drug trip film Easy Rider, starring Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper, which I haven't seen.
Oh, okay. I mean, that one I've at least like heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a famous movie. No, I've never seen it.
Joe, no?
No, I know of it, but I've never seen it.
Hopper was also the director of that movie. And there's some pretty crazy stories about the making of that movie in that like Easy Rider's Raging Bulls book that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. Most of them involving a drugged up Dennis Hopper. And I just want to share one with you guys real fast. It's super quick. So they're making Easy Rider, and Dennis Hopper's on, I don't know, probably all of the drugs that he's able to.
Bare minimum 6 different kinds of drugs? Sure.
Yeah.
He's all hopped up.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where that expression came from.
Which I realized before reading this book that I always kind of knew that he was, Dennis Hopper is like crazy, like whatever. But that was like 90s Dennis Hopper. I was like, ooh, he's kind of kooky.
Yeah.
I didn't know that 1970s.
That's when he would calm down and couldn't do as many drugs anymore.
I didn't know that 1970s Dennis Hopper was like, you're like, holy shit, that guy he's yeah.
That guy's going to murder somebody.
Yeah. Which brings us to the story. Okay, so he busts in on, I think, Peter Fonda. This is when they're making Easy Rider. Peter Fonda is having dinner with Rip Torn. You know who both those guys are, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And it says, the book says, Hopper burst in upon the revelers, who were all drinking wine and having a fine time of it, and shouted, "What the fuck is happening, Peter? Why aren't you guys writing?" Having gotten their attention, he continued, "Things are so rough out there, I couldn't even stop in Texas. They're cutting dudes' hair with rusty razors." Rip Torn, who hailed from Texas, recalls he tried to calm Hopper down, saying, take it. I can't do a Rip Torn. Take it easy. Like something like that.
That's pretty close. Keep doing that.
Not everyone from Texas is an a-hole. It says, and he stood up, extending his hand, but Hopper batted it away, pushed him, says something like, "Sit down, you motherfucker." Then, says Torn, Hopper grabbed a steak knife off the table and threatened him with it, placing the point between his eyes and about 5 inches away. Torn, who had been a military policeman in the army, disarmed Hopper.
I was about to say, Rip Torn's kind of a crazy motherfucker too, isn't he?
Yes, for sure. There's like some other story, like when I can't remember what movie it was, where he like attacks the director. They have it on film. You can watch it on YouTube.
Jesus Christ.
He attacks the director he comes at him with a hammer. Like a little. It wasn't like. I mean, it's still a hammer, but it was like a smaller, like a
ball peen hammer.
Yeah, something like that. But it is a fucking hammer still. And the guy like gets him and like. I think, he was obviously on something, but I think he was drunk. So the guy was able to get him and like but like you can hear women in the back, because I watched the video because I was reading an article about it, and you can hear women in the background screaming like, "Oh my God." I'm like, "Oh shit." Christ. But then you know nothing's going to happen either to them, so it's okay to watch. I don't know. Anyway.
Good old.
So, Torn, who had been a military policeman in the army, disarmed Hopper, reversing the knife and putting it on his chest. According to writer Don Carpenter, who was also there, Hopper jumped backwards, bumping into Fonda, knocking him down. Hopper exclaimed, "I've got a buck knife. You want to have a knife fight?"
He just took your knife, man.
He's got a buck knife.
That was your knife. He didn't want to have a knife fight. You wanted to have a knife fight.
Yeah. He forgot already. Come on. Torn replied, "I'll wait for you in the street. Bring your guns, bring your knives, bring your pals, and we'll find out in about 3 seconds who the punk is. And he walked outside.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Anyway, that was a crazy first day of shooting.
And Torn said, he said, I knew he had a buck knife, but I considered what would happen if he did have a gun. So I stood between the two cars with a trash can lid. I was going to sail at him and run like hell, but he never came out.
What?
Yep, that's what happened. So basically, once Rip Torn called him on his shit and went outside and like, fuck you, let's go out and fight then.
Oh, yeah.
Dennis Hopper's like, nah, that guy's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not going out there.
That guy's crazy and he knows how to fight.
Yeah. So yeah, Rip Torn was supposed to be on Easy Rider, but he didn't end up doing it because of other commitments. Apparently.
I wonder why.
Yeah. Anyway.
So he made Easy Rider, and then what else?
Yes, that was Easy Rider. So anyway, the last film that they produced as Raybert Productions was called 5 Easy Pieces, which Bob Rafelson directed and starred Jack Nicholson in what I'm pretty sure was the role that made him famous.
Really?
And yeah, I know he was an Easy Rider, but I think that this movie had a bit more impact on his career, like career-wise, because he was the lead character. And I could be 100% wrong about that because I've never seen Easy Rider, so I don't know how much actual screen time he had.
Yeah.
But anyway, have either of you seen 5 Easy Pieces?
No.
Never heard of it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I watched it the other day because I'm pretty sure it's Bob Rafelson's most successful film, both critically and financially. And I only say pretty sure because I'm not 100% positive if it was his highest grossing film. But I definitely know that it was his highest rated, critic, on Rotten Tomatoes, basically. But yeah, anyway, so Bob Rafelson also has a story credit on 5 Easy Pieces, with IMDb crediting Carol Eastman as the screenwriter. And according to the Easy Rider Raging Bulls book, Eastman wrote the screenplay based on some ideas that Rafelson gave her. The book then claims that Rafelson made script changes and then went ahead and gave himself a story, like a co-story credit, which Carol Eastman was not very happy about. And I'm not 100% sure if that's true or not, because a lot of the people that the book talks about denounced some of the stories for being untrue when it was released, even though some of those people were interviewed by the author for the book. Like it would be stuff like, he took what I said out of context. I'm like, you said that this person did a bunch of blow and then did this. I'm like, what? Which part did he take out of context? Because I get that if something, but all of it really, you're quoted throughout the whole fucking book. So I'm kind of like, okay, once I read that, I was like, okay, well, take this with the allegedly. But it's a really good book because you're like, that's what the Dennis Hopper thing came from. And like I said before, it's just 1970s Hollywood and craziness because the Hays Code had just ended recently-ish. Which you guys know what that is?
It was like the super strict rules about what could be in movies, right?
Yes, it was which got put in place in 20s or 30s or something like that. Stuff kind of starts changing in the early 70s with the type of movies that start coming out with all of a sudden you get all this shit.
Like crime movies and shit, yeah.
Yeah. You get the fucking potato in a hat, Gene Hackman, with... It's just a funny picture to me. He looks like a potato in a hat. With fucking, what's the movie called? The chase movie. I can't remember what the fucking movie.
Italian Job?
No, it's not the Sting?
No. The French Connection. Yeah. He's got that pork pie hat on him. He just looks like a fucking potato in a hat. I don't know. Anyway. But yeah, so even Rafelson's ex-wife, Toby, who was 5 Easy Pieces, the film's production designer, said in the book that the basic premise of the movie was his idea. So, I don't know. Yeah. Moving on, 5 Easy Pieces ends up being a success upon its release, which the Raybert fellas follow up with another hit, the 1971 coming-of-age film The Last Picture Show, which was nominated for 8 Oscars and won 2, and made Bert Schneider and Bob Rafelson a couple of Hollywood's hottest producers, pretty much. They produced a few more films over the next years that we're going to skim past because, I don't know, I was running out of time, and they were... whatever. I don't know them. I didn't watch them. They were The King of Marvin Gardens in 1972, which Rafelson directed and once again starred Jack Nicholson.
As the Monopoly Man?
I think I'm not sure. So maybe it's like, I don't know, it's like a gritty movie made in the Monopoly world, which I'm never going to watch it now. I'm just going to assume that's what it is.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, so then a film after that called The Mother and the Whore, 1973, which I have no idea what that's about, but it sounds like a fun time. Yeah, I didn't look any of these up. And then following that up with the 1974 documentary about the Vietnam War titled Hearts and Minds. That pretty much catches us up to Bob Rafelson meeting Arnold Schwarzenegger. Apologies about the long intro for Rafelson. I wanted to give you guys an idea of how big a name Bob Rafelson was at the time. Because like I said, I definitely had no idea before researching this. Yeah. And like a acclaimed producer on top of that. Yeah. Which, according to that book, was partly because they didn't interfere. They usually would try not to interfere with the movies they were producing, like giving the directors pretty much creative freedom that usually ended up paying off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Arnold Schwarzenegger meets Bob Rafelson, who isn't completely sold on Arnold yet for the role of Joe Santo, but tells him that if he does end up in the movie, it's going to be a life changer for him. He's like using like Five Easy Pieces did for Jack Nicholson as an example. And Arnold's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like in the book, he's like, I had stars in my eyes and stuff like that. So this is when Arnold first began hanging out with celebrities. Like he like name drops Jack Nicholson and Warren Beatty at this point. Would invite some like bodybuilders to their parties.
Because this was, sorry, just so I have the timeline straight. This is definitely post Pumping Iron, right?
No, this is before.
This is before?
Yeah, this is before the movie came out. The book hadn't even come out yet. So,
okay.
Yeah, so the book was coming out. This was like 74, soon, like within the year.
Got it. Okay.
He mentions that Hollywood was starting to change, like, because I think I mentioned this in the Pumping Iron episode that everyone's listened to, but Hollywood was starting to change, and because at the time the action star was a potato in a hat, so like people like
sure,
like Clint Eastwood and stuff, like thinner, like yeah,
and Jack Nicholson and like
yeah. Well, like
not that he did a bunch of action,
but it was like
that was your leading man.
Yeah, and he said that celebrities started to work out. Finally started to work out, but he also mentions that they would work out, but then they would kind of hide it. They wanted people to think that that was natural. Yeah, the celebrities would invite the bodybuilders over, and then he also mentions how that like a couple times that they came to his apartment and they'd be hanging out outside having a barbecue. He's like, which really tripped people out, but people would walk by and they're like, holy shit, is that Jack Nicholson? By the way, he also had a girlfriend at the time named Barbara Outland, who I believe he'd been dating for 5 years at this point, since 1969. So he mentions in the book that she wanted to settle down and get married, and for him to eventually like open up a health store. So she wasn't super happy about his possible venture into Hollywood. Yeah, but I have a good feeling about them, so... Anyway, so Arnold doesn't get a straight answer yet from Rafelson about the role. So in the meantime, he and Franco Columbu decide to host a bodybuilding tournament, specifically the 1974 Mr. International competition. They hire a publicist to help them promote it, who gets Sports Illustrated to cover the event, as well as getting Arnold booked on various late-night talk shows. Those include The Merv Griffin Show, The Mike Douglas Show, and The fucking Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Because apparently, like, talk shows were super lax about who they booked in the 70s. I don't know. Like, what the fuck? Like,
just trying to kill time. Man. Yeah. You gotta have guests.
I think, I'm curious if that was the time.
It can't always be Dom DeLuise.
Or Rodney Dangerfield is another one that I always see on there. But it always is Dom DeLuise. Well, at the time, I'm curious if this was the time when he was doing 2 hours. Or like an hour and a half maybe. Or something like that. Because I know there was a time when he would go from, this was before Letterman, so he would
there was nothing after the Tonight Show. It was just
But yeah, so he got booked on those. And of course he was as charming as fuck self during these appearances, saying in the book that the interviewers were always shocked that he could talk and wasn't just some big dumb oaf. But yeah, so he and Franco host the Mr. International competition in Los Angeles. That was August of 1974. On top of that being a success, it also leads to a pretty sweet opportunity for Arnold, because his appearance on Merv Griffin actually ends up leading to Lucille Ball's people reaching out to him and asking if he'd appear in an upcoming TV movie she's starring in with Art Carney, who I think was on The Honeymooners.
Oh, is he the skinny guy in The Honeymooners?
Yeah, he's the one that's not, I can't even remember, Jackie Gleason.
Yeah.
And that was titled Happy Anniversary and Goodbye, which Arnold says was his screen debut because apparently Hercules in New York was never released, which I didn't double check my notes, but I don't remember that from the episode that we did, which is kind of embarrassing because I'm like, how the fuck did you not catch that?
What? It was never released?
That's what he said in his book. So, so he called this his screen debut, which I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe once we do Hercules in New York, we'll figure it out. You know? Anyway, we're going to skip past his role in the TV movie with Lucille Ball because we're going to get to that eventually in like some other episode. But at the same time he was doing that, he was also training for the 1974 Mr. Olympia competition, which he ends up beating Lou Ferrigno to win. So after the competition, Arnold attends a book party for the release of Pumping Iron, which Bob Rafelson is also attending. And according to Arnold, Rafelson had begun casting for Stay Hungry, with Jeff Bridges already having been cast in the lead role, which doesn't quite line up with the timeline that Bob Rafelson gave in a 1976 interview he did with, it's called the BFI, the British Film Institute.
Yeah.
But yeah, Arnold's a busy guy, so, he can't remember every single minute of every single day.
Yeah. It's definitely not because he was smoking all that weed.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so according to the interview with Bob Rafelson, the day after the 1974 Mr. Olympia competition was the day that he'd set as his deadline for letting Charles Gaines know whether or not he wanted to adapt Stay Hungry. Apparently, Rafelson had met with Chuck Gaines a few months before the competition to discuss adapting Gaines' book, which Rafelson had read right around the time he was doing a bunch of research for a movie about the West African slave trade.
Got it.
Yeah, so I guess after a family tragedy, though, Rafelson decided to shelve that project and work on something a bit more cheerful because the whole slavery thing was just really kind of starting to bum him out, like after that family stuff happened,
I mean, I get fair, I guess. Yeah, sure. Especially yeah.
Question.
Yes.
You mean he went in to stay hungry from the slavery?
That's just those words together sound funny.
He was gonna make the slavery movie,
Yes.
Right. And then, but he switched gears and did Stay Hungry because
because something happened with his family and he got shit was tough and I don't know. But he put it more eloquently than that, by the way.
I'm sure.
Yes. But that's more or less what he said, which I found the honesty of kind of funny because I know what he meant.
Yeah.
And it definitely makes sense. But for some reason, it just made me picture this totally made up version of Bob Rafelson that was just completely unaware of how fucking horrible the West African slave trade was. Just during his interview being
it?
Yeah. During the interview being I don't know how familiar you are with this whole slavery stuff that happened a while back. Well, whew, let me tell you, it was not good. Just, I don't know. It's just
shit was fucked up.
Yeah. Oh man. Have you ever heard of that? Just, I don't know.
Just comes into the interview with his hand shaking, smoking a cigarette, Jesus Christ, man.
Apparently, we're dickheads.
Yeah.
He wouldn't admit that. I'm just
no.
No.
Anyway, okay, but yeah, like I said, Rafelson set up a meeting with Charles Gaines to discuss the book. Although this wasn't because he was interested in adapting the story. This was because the book's ending reminded him of his last two films, with Rafelson admitting during that same 1976 BFI interview, quote, "With Stay Hungry, I wasn't in the least interested in making this book into a movie, but I was interested in the writer. So I met Gaines in Birmingham, Alabama, and it was only at the end of a very long conversation that I said to him that the conclusions of his novel were not unlike the conclusions I had come to in both 5 Easy Pieces and The King of Marvin Gardens." Unquote. So basically, he didn't care about the actual story. He just liked the fact that Chuck Gaines had ended the book in a way that was tonally similar to the end of his movies, which...
Cool.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. I guess, I don't know.
What a weird place to start that conversation.
I like the ending, bro.
Yeah. Sweet ending, man. Have you seen my movies?
Sorry, you've seen 5 Easy Pieces, right? You said you watched it?
Yes, I did.
How does that end?
It ends... Oh, sorry. I was I already told you. I explained it to Erica the other night. But,
well, I mean, I sort of saw it.
Yeah, she sort of saw it. So Did I even tell you what it's about?
I don't think so.
I don't even know what it's about.
Okay, so basically it's Jack Nicholson. He's a oil derrick worker.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
That's how it starts. And has a girlfriend who's kind of dumb. It's like annoying. She's dating
annoying. She's ditzy and talks like a baby.
Yeah.
Oh, gross.
So it's basically like him like hanging out with his work friend and his wife, and for a while there's nothing really happening, and then all of a sudden he quits the job. He ends up meeting up with his sister, who's a pianist, like I'm pretty sure she's like recording for something. She's being recorded in a studio, and you find out that he used to be like he's super good at music.
Oh, okay. He's a musical prodigy.
Yeah, something. Oh, okay. Yeah. So she tells him that their dad's dying, like he's had a couple strokes. So he goes back home, and part of it is the trip going home, which I think I might have mentioned this like before. But there's a scene, like a famous scene of him in a diner, and he's trying to order like eggs and toast or something like that. But there's no substitutions, and they don't have it, and so he's trying to like get. It's a good scene. But,
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he gets there. He hangs out with his family for a bit. He realizes that they kind of suck. His brother's also a prodigy, and his dad was like they're kind of like a famous musical family, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, his girlfriend shows up. One of the family's guests is a dick to her, so he defends her. They leave, and his girlfriend's pregnant, by the way. I forgot to mention that. They're going back home, and so the movie ends with them stopping at a gas station to fill up, and he's in the bathroom, and then decides to ditch her. So she's at the pump. There's a big like refueling truck that's sitting right outside the bathroom. He talks to the guy like without her seeing, because he's like hidden behind the truck. He talks to the guy who owns the truck, asks him for a ride. Like he doesn't show this. It's like pulling out, so you can't hear anything.
Got it.
Gets in the truck and leaves, and the last like shot is the truck driving away as she's standing there like looking around.
That's the fucking end of the movie.
Yes, that's the end of the movie. So. And I don't know how Marvin, like I should have looked up how The King of Marvin Gardens ends, but it's probably similar if it's tonally similar to that.
And so he reads this book and he's just like, man, you're a bleak asshole, just like me.
Yeah.
I would like to think the end of King of Marvin Gardens is he just walking out with a crown in the middle of a type of French type of maze garden in the front of a castle.
I thought you were going to say he passes go.
No, he lands on the luxury thing after passing go, so he gets his money taken away. Because it's got to end sad, apparently.
Exactly.
Right.
So yeah, he didn't care about the story, which again, cool. But like as I'm reading all this stuff, I'm like trying really hard as I'm writing this not to shit on this guy, because like the whole like he and stuff like I and stuff just reason like comes off like egotistical as fuck. And is that just me, or like I'm sure I'm reading more into it just because I don't really care for him, but
yeah, I mean he seems like a prick. I don't know. It's at least a little bit egotistical. I don't like going into a conversation where that's like the only thing you liked about his book, or like where that's really the only thing you guys have to talk about. Especially when the author is probably really excited about meeting a director who liked his book. Like,
yes,
that seems shitty. Yeah.
Which leads us to the next thing, because Rafelson then goes on to prove that he didn't give a shit about the actual story by letting Chuck Gaines know that he'd make significant changes to the book if he did end up adapting it. Yeah, this was at the meeting. So I guess this wasn't a deal breaker for Gaines, even though he did have other offers for the book rights.
Huh.
Yeah, so he definitely could have pushed for a more faithful adaptation if he really wanted to, but apparently he was a bit of like a Bob Rafelson fanboy. So his interest in working with Rafelson ended up outweighing his attachment to the source material.
Jesus.
That's according to Bob Rafelson. I didn't find anything about Charles Gaines talking about it, but so...
Yeah.
Which Rafelson did warn him. He's like, well, you might not be happy with it, but then like... doesn't mention anything else about it. It's like you say that now, but anyway.
Yeah.
So even though Charles Gaines had agreed to the changes that Rafelson wanted to make to the book, Bob Rafelson still made him wait anywhere between 6 weeks and several months, depending on the year like that he was interviewed about this. Because like the first the first one, the 6 months was from a 1976 that BFI interview, and then the several months was mentioned in a 2019 Esquire magazine interview. Yeah. And if you're wondering what Bob Rafelson was actually doing during this time, according to the 2019 Esquire magazine interview, he was, quote, hitchhiking across the South, infiltrating Southern society and immersing himself in the weightlifting culture, because apparently he was the director's version of like a method actor. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think he needed that for this movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
it's good to know, like, I don't know. This is also, which is me defending the whatever, but like, it's also a time where there isn't, I think we take for granted how easy it is to get information now. So
I guess that's fair, but like, I don't know. Having since watched the movie, I find that he is a little too he's a little bit too intent or focused on getting like an authentic feel for what Southern people are like to the detriment of the story.
Right.
yes,
Like it felt like that.
but like not the bad parts of the Southern people.
Well, no, but man, can they play the fiddle?
Yeah, the best part is the reason he gave for his immersion into the weightlifting world, saying during the 1976 interview that he did it because, quote, I wasn't sure I was in the least intrigued by their profession. The day after the Mr. Olympia contest in New York was the day I'd set as my deadline for notifying Gaines as to whether or not I would pursue the thing. And there was enough there, obviously, to make me decide I wanted to do it. Unquote. But yeah, like, I don't know, just like nothing gets me looking forward to watching a film quite like reading about the director's like lukewarm interest in not just the source material, but also the film's like entire subplot.
Yeah.
Just
Inspires a lot of confidence.
yeah, exactly. The more stuff I read, I'm like, why did you even do the movie?
Yeah.
And there's something like in that book I read, and I think I read it somewhere else, but that I think it was actually in a Roger Ebert review or something like that. They weren't as worried about plot back then. Like it was more about like the feel of the movies or whatever.
Absolutely.
Which I'm like, and I'm the complete opposite. So
Yeah. I don't really like that style, but I understand that that's the way the 70s were. But I don't know. I feel like there are probably way better versions of it than this movie.
yeah, which again, it makes me curious about the book, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, that brings us back to the Pumping Iron book party. And according to Arnold's book, Bob Rafelson had begun casting the movie, with Jeff Bridges having already been cast in the lead role. And I couldn't really find much from Jeff Bridges about the movie, but one of the things I did find is just it's just great. So it's a 2022 interview that he did for a book about Bob Rafelson, and I could probably sum up his answer for how he became involved in the film, but I want to read it instead because, like, partly because it's short, but mostly because it reads like it's unedited. And you can definitely hear, like, I don't know. So anyway, so he's being interviewed by Chris Wade, and he's asked how he got the part in Stay Hungry, and Jeff Bridges tells him, quote, "Hey, Chris, gosh, I wish I could do his voice."
Yeah. I can't do a good Jeff Bridges.
Because I'm just going Southern or something. "Hey, Chris, gosh, now this is all so long ago. I'm trying to think back now. Well, it all started with The Last Picture Show, which Bob's company produced, BBS. God, what other company is named after people's first names? I love that." The Last Picture was one of their big productions, so Bob was aware of me from that, and it kind of fell into place. I can't recall exactly. It must have been through my agent. It all started with Picture Show. Unquote. I don't know.
Yeah, that's very Jeff Bridges. In his old age, he just fucking talks like he gives no like. He just doesn't give a shit. Like he doesn't care how he answers things. He doesn't want to sound professional or anything like that. He's just like talking.
But I just love how because that was written. So I like how the person didn't cut out the "Hey Chris, gosh" part of it. Just like,
yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, so they cast him, and he already had a ton of credits at this time, dating back to the 50s, which I don't know. One of them he's like an infant, so that doesn't really count. But but like past that, he was in. I didn't know Lloyd Bridges had his own show.
Oh
yeah, because he was credited on the Lloyd Bridges show, which I was like, And then I realized
that like a sitcom.
I don't know because I didn't look at it because I was in a hurry. But I realized I don't think I've seen him in anything older, like his dad.
No, it's like
because I'm trying to think of what I've actually seen him in besides Seinfeld. I know I've seen him in a bunch, but Airplane.
Like Airplane.
Yeah, that's probably the oldest.
Exactly, I think that's like the oldest thing I would know him from. God, what else?
So anyway, so Jeff Bridges is cast. We're still at the party, and now both Charles Gaines and George Butler are once again pushing for Rafelson to cast Schwarzenegger for the role of the bodybuilding role of Joe Santo, with Gaines even rewriting the character to make him more Schwarzeneggerian, which he did by making the character Austrian, even though he's a Native American in the book.
Yeah.
They couldn't change the name?
Oh,
is
that's what I was thinking too. Maybe
Because the first time I saw Joe Santo, I was like, really? It just seems
well,
like
yes.
you could have.
It's like,
Yeah, I mean, you're changing
Gustav?
everything
I don't
else.
know.
You couldn't think of a different
Is
name?
Gustav Austrian?
No, that sounds Russian.
Well, like Joe's a fine
That's
Austrian
fine.
name, I think.
That's fine.
But like
It's
the Santo is the weird part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could have just been Joe Schmidt or whatever.
Schnitzel.
Yeah, like,
Who cares?
yeah.
Like, come on.
It's
Like,
the 70s. They don't
let's-
give a shit about,
Right.
about
Like,
political
let's
correctness.
just go all
Yeah.
out. Come on.
Yeah,
like,
his name's Joe
Cultural
Schnitzelbrecht.
sensitivity.
yeah.
Joe Oktoberfest. Nice
Yeah.
to meet you.
Right.
Okay. But yeah, so Arnold then says that Rafelson eventually calls him up to set up a meeting after the TV movie that he did with Lucille Ball aired. And during that meeting, Rafelson starts grilling Arnold about the acting requirements for the role. And I'm going to read you this little part of their conversation real quick because it just makes me laugh. This is coming from Arnold's autobiography. So he says, quote, "We sat down at Zucky's in Santa Monica the next day for lunch. Bob was all business. I'd never seen him in movie director mode. He took charge of the conversation and had a lot to say. He quotes Bob Rafelson as saying, I want you to play the lead role in the film, but I'm not going to give it to you. You have to earn it. Right now, I feel you are not capable of being in front of the camera and selling all the different beats that I need." And then this is Arnold talking. He says, "I didn't know what a beat was, but as he continued, I began to catch on." And then he goes back to quoting Rafelson, saying, "Most people think of a bodybuilder as a guy who will walk into a room and crash into everything and break it. When he talks, it'll be a rough talk. But I bought the book partly because this guy, besides being powerful, is sensitive. You'll see him lifting hundreds of pounds of weight, but in the next scene, he might pick up a glass and say, 'Do you know what this is? This is Baccarat crystal. Look how gorgeous it is. Look how delicate it is.' That's just one example. He loves music. He plays the fiddle. He can get off on the quality of a guitar. He has sensitivity and intuition that are almost like a woman's."
Jesus.
"That's what makes the character. He is able to shift gears, and that's very hard to pull off." And that's him quoting Bob Rafelson. Arnold then says, "I made a mental note. I would have to take a few fiddle lessons." Every single time what he pulls from it. Every time I read that, I'm like, it just sounds like something out of a like Futurama or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it just like pans down to his notepad and he's like,
It's just like a picture of he's just sketching a fiddle. He's like doodling himself playing fiddle.
Anyway. Okay, so so Rafelson eventually agrees to hire him on two conditions. First, that he begin taking acting lessons immediately. And then secondly, that he cut down his weight from 240 to 210, which of the two was the one that he had a problem with because it basically meant that he'd have to retire from competing.
What was the purpose behind that?
He wanted him to cut his weight because the camera makes the body look bigger. And he doesn't want him to, this is what he has, Bob Rafelson quoted as saying, "And I don't want you to overwhelm the other actors with your size. You can still weigh 210 and sell the idea of being Mr. Universe." Yeah. Like even after he cuts down, he's still way bigger than...
He's still huge, but
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, so he agrees to do both. And the production company pays for 3 months of both acting classes and private lessons from acting coach Eric Morris, who had been Jack Nicholson's acting coach. Yeah. And there's a pretty funny story in the book about how, like his acting coach trying to get him to summon the emotion to cry. But Arnold just like wasn't at the time exactly in touch with his emotions.
Yeah.
And just like while reading it, I was just like thinking, I know why he wants him to cry, but for some reason he doesn't understand that it's something that he can never do. I don't know. It just made me think of the Terminator 2 scene for some reason, like at the end of the movie. Like, and then after that, I was just imagining like his acting coach, like years later watching T2 and being like, "You're telling me," like when he sees Arnold deliver that line.
And luckily, I don't think I've ever seen him cast in something that he needs to cry in.
I think he might have been Maggie.
Even Maggie. Like, does he really need to cry in Maggie?
I mean, his daughter's dying, so maybe.
Yeah, but like, she's not dead yet.
Yeah, but she's like, I think maybe a Maggie, but like, I don't know. I'm assuming so.
I'm sure he did, like, between Maggie and Aftermath, I'm sure he did at least once or twice.
Yeah. I'm sure it was fantastic.
Not a lot of other stuff, yeah.
I don't remember him crying in Aftermath or Collateral Damage.
Collateral damage?
No. No, I
wouldn't
don't
think
think
so.
he would have cried.
If he's doing it, it's in the
Collateral
shower,
Damage.
so it just kind of...
Well, the only shower scene in Aftermath is his butt that I remember. So I was looking a little south from his tears. Sorry.
Distracted. Well, he shouldn't have been crying at that point either because he was.
I was looking at his other cheeks.
Right.
Because
those were wet too.
That was before his family died. So, like, he's crying. It's just his own personal issues. Like, it was just a hard day.
Sometimes it's a good time to take
just construction worker pain.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so according to Arnold's book, it was right around this time that Sally Field had been cast, who, before getting the role of Mary Tate Farnsworth, had not worked in 2 years ever since her show, which was called The Girl with Something Extra, was canceled after only one season, which I'm really curious what that was about. And I think
I don't remember, but I think it was probably something similar to like a coming of age, like probably something similar to. I've never seen My So-Called Life, but I would assume it was something similar.
I think she was 19 or 20 when she got the part in Stay Hungry, I think, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's just like a
19
new girl situation.
Yeah.
Like, it's a girl and she's quirky.
She wasn't very happy about the role. That's all I remember, because she didn't want another like sitcom-y type thing, because she was just starting to be known as like the sitcom.
That's what I was going to say. Is like I bet you it was similar to Gidget. Is that what
that was a show though?
Gidget was?
Yeah. This ends up being her first movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was a show. It was only on for one season.
No, sorry.
The Girl Was
Sorry. I meant Stay Hungry. Ends up being her first movie.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, so according to Sally Field's autobiography, this is partly because she told her agent that she only wanted to do movies, why she didn't work for 2 years. And she told them to turn down any TV offers that came in. Her agent advised her that she should stick to sitcoms because only models work in film, and she wasn't pretty enough.
Jesus.
Yeah. And she responded by firing that douchebag. So.
Yeah, fuck that. Fuck that guy.
He did throw in no offense. And no offense, you're not... Well, according to Sally Field.
Oh, well, now I'm on his side.
No offense, but you're not really pretty enough to be in film.
Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah, the 70s were fun. Especially for ladies.
Yeah.
Definitely for dudes. Anyway. And that's why she was famous at the time, wasn't it? Like, yeah, like Erica said, like starring at, like in sitcoms as a kid, like it was just Gidget and the Flying Nun, wasn't it? Or were there more?
Pretty sure that was it. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
It was
and
Gidget and the Flying.
Didn't she like hate being like the Flying Nun, or was like ashamed of it or something like that? Or like just because it was like a joke around like pretty much Hollywood or something like that, right? Like they like late night shows were digging in on it and stuff like it was just like an easy punchline sort of thing.
Oh, I thought she just hated Catholics.
So The Girl with Something Extra is about her and her husband and being a normal, cute, newlywed couple attempting to begin a quiet new life together. The only problem is she's blessed with powers of ESP.
Oh.
She's psychic?
That's the extra part.
Which her skills at mind reading get her and her husband into plenty of wacky situations.
It would.
So I guess it's just like a Bewitched ripoff?
Huh?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Sorry, I read parts of the book, but skipped over a lot of it. So I'm like, I got like the Stay Hungry part down, but and the end of it I read because I was like, I wonder if what she talks about with the 90s stuff. Not much.
No?
Yeah, she kind of skips over like the 90s and mentions like the movies that she was in that like in a passing way, but then like stops on Lincoln.
Gotcha.
Because that was
the role she like super wanted.
But yeah, good book. So anyway, apparently Sally Field spent the 2 years leading up to Stay Hungry working on the old acting chops, you know? Like she was even studying at the actor studio with Lee Strasberg, who, have you guys heard of? I know Erica has because you read the book, but Chris?
That's like a name I've heard. I don't remember like who he is.
Okay, so I guess he was the director of the school, like the actor studio. As well as being a super famous acting coach, which I'm sure is 100% simplifying and or downplaying his career and accomplishments. And I apologize for that to anybody that cares, which, yes, I apologize for that, but it gets the point across. So whatever. But basically, the New York Times had called him the, quote, father of method acting in America, and said that he revolutionized the art of acting.
Yeah, I think that's where I hered of him as like...
That New York Times, that 1970s New York Times article you read?
Yeah, like, exactly.
Oh, right. I was digging through the archives.
I was a very well-read child. Fetus.
Right.
Cat in the Hat, get that shit out of here. Bring me the Times, mama.
I guess if you don't have any New Yorkers.
New Yorker. Oh, you're an asshole on top of that. So anyway, Sally Field was attending sessions with, that dude, Strasberg, training. She was training to develop her method acting skills. And she says she read the Stay Hungry script in 1975, which she described in her book by saying, quote, "It was well written, and if telling an understandable story with believable, realistic characters was what I was looking for, then Stay Hungry wasn't it." Unquote. But I guess she was given the script after the casting director included her to the list of actresses to audition, which she said happened for two reasons. The first being the good reputation she'd earned based on her work at the Actors Studio. And then secondly, actress Zora Lampert, who played Sally Field's best friend on the show, what was it called? The last show she did.
The Girl with Something Extra?
Yeah, The Girl with Something Extra. She played her best friend on that. She was good friends with the casting director, whose name is Diane Crittenden. So yeah, and she'd recommended her. But yeah, as far as the audition, she says that while waiting outside of Bob Rafelson's office beforehand, she could hear him screaming at the casting director, Diane Crittenden, just pissed about the fact that she had added Sally Field to their list of actresses that they had to audition.
Jesus.
And that auditioning her was a waste of time.
What?
Yeah, seriously, like, the more and more I read about this dude, the more I just did not fucking like him. Like, he's basically throwing a tantrum loud enough for her to hear just to be a dick.
Yeah.
Because there's no fucking way that he thought that she might not hear him if he's yelling right out, like, and she's right outside the office. I don't know. And on top of that, sorry, this stuff is why his movies didn't really stand a chance for me as far as liking them. Because I'm like, oh, fuck this dude. And then watching his movies, I'm just sitting there criticizing every single fucking thing that I'm watching. Okay, so sorry. So Rafelson is yelling because he doesn't want Sally Field to audition. Wait. Sorry, I need to start throwing in some allegedlys just in case. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so let me start that over. So Rafelson allegedly throws a bitch fit over having to audition Sally Field, which if I'm going to say it allegedly, I can just say whatever I want after that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So Rafelson is just being a little bitch over the fact that Sally Field has to audition.
So allegedly, tiny dicked Bob Rafelson.
Just with Field saying that she used the anger she was felt about that dick move to fuel her performance for the audition. Yeah. That audition consisted of two scenes, which she would be doing. Like, her scene partner was Charles Gaines, the writer. Yeah.
Got it.
Oh, I also forgot to mention that she had decided beforehand that because her reputation going into the audition was as like a Gidget, like the Flying Nun, like a TV actor.
Yeah.
She decided that the only way she was going to get the part was if she went in completely method from the get-go.
Got it.
So that when she walked into the audition, they only saw the character, the Mary Tate Farnsworth character, not Sally Field.
Yeah.
I think it was also the first thing she said she ever had to audition for, because everything else had been a TV show that was made for her.
Yeah, she said it was her second one.
Okay.
She said she auditioned. I think she said she auditioned for Gidget, and she hasn't auditioned since 1964 or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Never really had to audition.
I didn't write it down, but eventually Bob Rafelson gives her shit. He's like, "You're obviously the best because you've done so many auditions." She's like, this is my second audition ever.
Yeah. Have an audition in more than a decade?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Real quick, since I doubt most people, the people listening to this, have seen the movie, how would you guys describe that character, the Mary Tate Farnsworth character, from watching it? I have a quote from Sally Field, but I was going to get your impression of it first.
How would I describe her? She's I have a hard time describing her because she in the movie she exists mostly as a love interest.
Yeah.
That's pretty much she doesn't have a ton of character. She's
spunky.
Sure. I don't even think she's that spunky. She just doesn't take I will say that she doesn't take any shit from all the rich people that she has to hang around.
Yeah.
She has some fucking self-respect and doesn't let the rich assholes she has to hang out with during part of the movie condescend to her and shit.
Yeah. Yeah. She knows how to defend herself. Yeah.
They definitely play her up as being kind of sex positive.
Yeah.
In that she doesn't mind. She's not super conservative about it, and she doesn't mind using her sexuality when she needs to.
Yeah. Which is similar to what basically some of them. So the quote from Sally Field about the character, which I'm assuming is how she played it too, the way she saw it, obviously. But she said, described her as, quote, Southern and appeared to be uneducated, economically challenged, and physically inclined. She was also sexual with an open, easy, no big deal kind of sensuality, unquote. And she says that was like it was challenging because she wasn't like outwardly like that, obviously.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't the image that she projected.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as far as the audition, Sally Field said that they actually ended up unexpectedly improvising the first scene when she decided to drop her script on the ground and then walk over and straddle Chuck Gaines after taking his script and tossing it on the floor. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so that was the first audition. She finishes up, leaves without like making eye contact or talking to them because fuck them.
Yeah.
Like after
because he was being an asshole
Yeah.
and because she was probably still doing the method thing.
Yeah, exactly. So she ends up getting a call a week later from Bob Rafelson regarding a callback, with him supposedly starting off by telling her, quote, well, we've now read every actress in this town, and I can't believe that you were the best.
Fuck you.
Yes.
Right?
Jesus Christ.
He says that before mentioning that there are 5 other girls that they were considering, and none of them had auditioned as well as she did, but they all had that, quote, long-legged and long-haired look that he was looking for. Because this dude is like seriously like the king of like negging. Like, he fucking sucks.
Jesus. Yeah. No, he just fucking sucks. Eat shit.
Oh. Anyway, okay.
It just reminds me of it reminds me of the Radioactive Man movie, the episode of The Simpsons, where Bart comes in and he's like, you would be perfect if you were 5 inches taller. Jesus Christ. Fucking idiot.
So her second audition was with Jeff Bridges, who she admitted to instantly connecting with, and pretty much any interview I found with her talking about him was always super positive. Like she
gushing over him, very
like
much.
they get along great. She loves him. It goes both ways.
Did they work together again?
Yes, they did. They were like 1982 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
I think she ended up working with his brother or something like that too.
Bo Bridges, probably.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Sally Field joins the film with her saying that she stayed in character for pretty much the whole production. And according to Arnold, this is going back, once Sally Field was cast, Bob Rafelson began threatening to fire him if he didn't make weight by the time they began filming in Birmingham. With his reason being that because of how petite Sally Field was, it made Arnold look even bigger, which I suppose makes sense. He's about a foot taller than her because she's 5'2", he's 6'2", and he already looks big compared to her when you see him on screen. So I can imagine like that extra 30 pounds might have made him look like cartoonishly big, especially because like there's no way that extra 30 pounds was not like almost all muscle.
Sure. I guess. I just like Sally Field in this movie makes everyone look like a giant.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not trying to be mean. She just like, she is as tall as she is.
Yeah, she's a small person.
And she was insanely thin too.
Right.
Yeah.
So she just makes everyone in this movie look giant. So I'm like, I can't imagine it being that effective, but whatever.
Yeah. So Schwarzenegger spends the winter of 1974 cutting weight, and he reaches the goal, but unfortunately, right before he leaves to film in Alabama, his girlfriend Barbara breaks up with him, which he basically says he saw coming, but, still hurt. Not enough to cry, I would assume, but still hurt. That's what he told her but like he did. That's where he actually gave that scene to James Cameron. He wiped a tear from her eye and then said, "I know now why you cry. Unfortunately, it's something I can never do," and then walked out. Alrighty, and that's going to do it for this episode, but we'll be back in just a few days to finish off that Stay Hungry production info, as well as check out all those sweet promotional videos that I definitely couldn't find. Until then, though, we'd love you forever if you just take a few seconds and leave us a rating and review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps so much, and we really appreciate any sort of constructive feedback. So yeah, thanks again, and we'll see you all soon.
See you at the party, Richter!
If you enjoy our show, please consider giving us a positive review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast app of choice. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at @ThePottyRichter to make sure you never miss an episode. See You at the Potty Richter is a production of Tape Deck Media. Follow Tape Deck on Instagram at TapeDeck_media or look us up on Facebook for more hilarious podcasts.
This has been a Tape Deck Media production. Thank you for listening.